I think it's been a pretty common thought amongst most Canadiens fans that the Habs are going to have to trade somebody soon. You have yourselves a boatload of players they just acquired in this year's NHL offseason, and it's kind of funny because when you take a look at the forwards that are now a part of this team that had not been a part of the team earlier, there actually is a pretty long list of guys added onto the squad. Juraj Slafkovsky, first overall, of course, we know he's probably going to be making the team. Kirby Dach is a new addition, so is Sean Monahan. Like, realistically, that's another line added to your team. And I get it, Monahan and Dach are both center, so it's not technically a line, but it's 3 players right there. That's a lot of capital added onto a forward core that was already pretty full when it comes to the players that were on the team, on the injury reserve, down there in the minors that actually had the potential of playing NHL minutes should you had given them that opportunity. And so, heading into the next few weeks over here, there is sort of a looming idea that says that the Montreal Canadiens, for better or for worse, are probably going to trade a forward or two. That's why we had ourselves this article written here on Montreal Hockey Now, published by Marco D'Amico yesterday on Tuesday, August 23rd. The Canadiens will need to move a forward by October. What this article does is it goes over the situation, it talks about the Habs, it talks about how they still have to re-sign that Kirby Dach, and how the Canadiens currently have a committed $57.8 million to their forward group and not enough for them to stay on their main roster. That number could increase once they sign Dach to his extension, which is likely to be a bridge deal. It is concerning that the Canadiens have such a high percentage of their total expenditure dedicated to forwards, as the group was one of the least efficient in the NHL last season. The article then brings up Kent Hughes and the desire that he has to add a defenseman. If we can find, and we believe that there will be, either via trade or the waiver process, a right shot D that becomes available to us, then we're going to continue to study that. In the interim, we feel like, even if we have an injury, we do have the capacity to put one of our guys on that right side. Executive Vice President Jeff Gorton echoed the same desire to make more moves on his recent interview on the Bob McCown podcast. Yes, you can always do more, he says. We'd like to add a few things before the start of next season on the subject of trading more players in this offseason. Whether that happens, I don't know. We have 15 to 16 forwards up front already, and we have some young players we want to take a look at on defense and at forward. We could do something in the next little while, too. The article then brings up a pretty good point, saying that even before the team acquired Sean Monahan, whom we've all kind of established in our minds is going to be a mainstay Canadian, hopefully for 82 games this season, Gorton even expressed the desire to give younger players like Slafkovsky or Ylonen a chance to show what they can do at training camp. If there are a few surprises at camp, the Canadiens could be forced to move forward. It's just a question of the Canadiens being able to find the right deal to ensure the short-term and long-term well-being of the club. Now, before we go over and continue reading as to what Marco D'Amico says in this article, by the way, the link will be in the description if you want to go ahead and check out the piece yourself. You gotta remember that if you have 15 to 16 forwards, you're already full. Like, straight up, there are 3x4 players on a forward core in an NHL game. That's 12 total players, plus an extra 1 or 2 of healthy scratches here and there. So at max, you're looking at a roster that has about 14 NHL forwards on it if you're taking a look at a team. And so having 15 to 16 guys already and then adding on Sean Monahan, it makes things a lot more complicated than they need to be when you're trying to assemble, okay, who plays, who's actually sitting, who's on what line. And it's so overwhelming to the point that that's kind of why everybody's saying, yeah, there's going to be a trade soon. Like, there's going to be somebody on their way out, and the Canadiens hopefully will go out there and try to get some good draft capital or some younger prospects, etc., in return for said player that they end up inevitably moving. But who could the Montreal Canadiens ship out? According to various NHL sources, the 3 Canadiens forwards being talked about as available on the market are Christian Dvorak, Mike Hoffman, and Joel Armia, with varying degrees of interest surrounding each player. Now, there is a pretty good in-depth analysis as to the entire situation with all these players in the piece, but we've already read so much of the article I'd feel kind of bad continuing on and doing even more, so click the link in the description if you want to go ahead and read what Marco D'Amico has to say. But when it comes to these 3, these are kind of the guys that I feel like are the most appropriate when it comes to a trade conversation. Christian Dvorak, let's start out talking about him right now. He's been on the market for a while, or at least that's what the speculation has said. Ever since the rumors about Pierre-Luc Dubois wanting to go to the Montreal Canadiens started to surface up, you had seen Christian Dvorak trade talk just spiraling around everywhere. It's like a looming cloud over the entire Canadiens fan base. Hey, That new dude that they traded away in the Jesperi Kotkaniemi compensation a year ago, yeah, he's probably going to get traded again soon in order to make room for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Now, Dvorak is 26 years old. He's got, 3 more seasons left at $4.45 million a year. And he's honestly not a bad player. I like Christian Dvorak. His point production in 2021-2022 was not bad, 33 points in 56 games played. However, he did play very poorly under Dominic Ducharme. Once the St. Louis bump took over, you really saw Dvorak putting up a lot more points. He had a pretty good point streak towards the end of the year, and he was a lot more consistent and more responsible, I feel, when playing under a system that actually worked, like Marty St. Louis did. I do believe that Dvorak still has a lot more to accomplish at the NHL level, but he's been the odd man out so many times in these conversations that nowadays, when you take a look at the future of the Habs, okay, you have Nick Suzuki in your first line, you have Kirby Dach probably on your second line, maybe Pierre-Luc Dubois comes in here, who really knows, maybe Dvorak is in there, Monahan maybe goes out there and takes a little bit of a bump. You gotta remember the Canadiens actually got an extra first for taking on Monahan, so that's why they have that contract under the books. But for Christian Dvorak, do you really want to go out there and start paying a guy that's going to be playing on your fourth or third line $4.45 million a season, especially as a player who a lot of people would argue actually does have a higher ceiling, I feel? For Christian Dvorak, it just doesn't really feel like a proper fit when it comes to the long-term path that he's going to take to develop, as well as what the Canadiens have heading into the next few years. So for Christian Dvorak, him being a potential odd man out, it's understandable to me. I really do like the player, though I was very high on him back in 2014 when he was drafted by the Arizona Coyotes, or the Phoenix Coyotes, something like that. I completely forgot. The other name here is Mike Hoffman, who also has a pretty beefy contract. He's signed till the end of 2024, making $4.5 million a season. He's 32 years old, and last season for the Canadiens, he had 35 points in 67 games played. Now, do the math on all the goals that he scored and all the points that he scored, and he actually wasn't that bad of a guy. It's just when you take a look at what the Canadiens had and how they were actually playing, Mike Hoffman has seen some better days, and there really is a lot more, I feel, that you can get out of a $4.5 million player, not just in terms of the production, but in terms of everything else. Mike Hoffman has been known as a one-trick pony for a long time, and a lot of Canadiens fans kind of knew that, hey, when he comes here, he's going to not do anything defensively. He'll only do things on the power play. It's just, I feel like for Mike Hoffman and the Canadiens' power play specifically, I feel like a lot of Canadiens fans might have been expecting a little bit more cohesion, because even though Hoffman did produce points, 15 goals in a 67-game year is not bad in the slightest, I think it just wasn't really too much of a fit. And now you have a player whose overall value is declining, because it's been a few years since he had that 70-point year, career-high year, by the way, with the Florida Panthers, wherein he had 36 goals. But now you have yourselves a 4.5 AAV player signed on for 2 more seasons, and he is already 32 years old, so one may have to question what exactly the future holds for Mike Hoffman. How good is he really going to be? It was a bad year in terms of his point production from year to year to year with the Montreal Canadiens, so is there going to be somewhat of a trend like that? Is Martin St. Louis going to go out there and help this guy produce a little bit more? Is he getting traded? Who really knows? And then you have Joel Armia, whom I've been such a big fan of the entire time. He's a big dude, 6'4", 218. He's 29 years old. He's making $3.4 million a season till the end of 2025, so he's got a few years left as well. And even though Armia is a fan favorite, a lot of people, myself included, love Armia, he scored the fewest points out of everybody we've talked about so far, at 14 points in 60 games on the year. The thing about Armia, though, is that if you're going out there expecting this guy to get a hat-trick a night, you're probably expecting the wrong type of performance from the wrong type of player. Armia is just a very good facilitator of play. He's a big dude. He's got really good hands to break up play and push things forward. I say good hands, and I'm not talking about always a dangler. He can dangle your pants off. I say good hands, and I mean he's really good at reaching around players and poking the puck over to a free player. He's really good at stealing the puck by pulling it in between his legs before skating away with it while the other player is out and off balance. He's a very good and strong facilitator of play. But $3.4 million is $3.4 million, and whether or not there is a team that values that amount of money to the point where they could actually get a player like Armia, who had 14 points in 60 games played, it remains to be seen. I like Armia a lot, but I could totally understand why he is in these trade discussions, as I could with Hoffman and Dvorak. Talk in the comments all your thoughts, though. Amongst these three, who do you think is the most likely to get traded? I hope you enjoyed this footage. And Bye.